Okay, guys, welcome back to the channel. Today, I have brought on Will back to the channel. It has been a while. Ex-legend to the channel, and we are going to be talking about the USMNT transfer so far. Starting it off, maybe the most exciting group is the goalkeeping group. Now, Will, I know you are a huge Arsenal fan, so let's start things off with Matt Turner. How do you feel about Matt Turner coming to your favorite club?
Yeah, so it was a very interesting one because I knew about him before Arsenal because of the national team. But for his price valuation, about 10 million, possibly even with Leno going out as well for about 10 million, it's a good trade. He brings that leadership. Ramsdale is still a bit younger than him for sure, but when we're talking about like U.S. men's national team, this is a shaky kind of transfer for him, especially when he's wanting to develop because he's in his mid 20s right now, which isn't even prime for goalkeepers. Usually it's like low 30s is where you start seeing some peak goalkeepers start performing. So it'll be very interesting to see that playing time because he'll play those cup games and whatnot. But still, over the next goalkeeper that we will go over after Matt Turner, it will still be a little shaky because there's still competition between both of them for sure.
All right, so moving on to the next keeper, we have Zach Stefan, who's kind of moving in the opposite direction from Turner. Instead of being in the Premier League where he's only playing in cup games, he's deciding to move down to the Championship and hope to get more game time and probably help his case in becoming a starter for the World Cup. So how do you see him doing over there at Middlesbrough?
Yeah, Zach Stepp, in my opinion, the least consistent out between him and Matt Turner for sure, but he has shown a lot more quality and peak chances and whatnot. Comes to Middlesbrough, a very educated side in the championship for sure, very experienced side. This is a huge opportunity for him, in my opinion, because out of any second division like leagues all across the nation, the championship is probably the most prestigious, and it'll be very interesting to see him play. And like you said, this is a huge development thing because he's a little bit younger than Turner actually, but still his development when he'll be playing basically every single match of the championship in any cups will be very interesting to see how he uses these opportunities to try to grow to beat Turner.
And it's a competitive team too. Like Middlesbrough just missed out, I believe, on promotion chances this last season. So he's going to a good side. And what kind of story would it be to see Zach Steffen go to Middlesbrough and then they get promoted or something like that? I don't know if there's a buyback option, but that would just be a cool story to see him go over there, get promoted, and then maybe he stays there, becomes like a lock-in starter next year in the Premier League with a slightly lower side. And I think that's something that I'd be like totally fine with. If
Oh
he
yeah.
left Man City to become a starter in the Premier League, maybe the team's in a like relegation scrap next year, but it would just be interesting. And moving to the last goalkeeper, we have Ethan Horvath, who's moving kind of the same direction. He was with Nottingham Forest last season, who were in the Championship. They get promoted through the playoff. They're now in the Premier League. And not only was he a backup then, wasn't playing a whole lot, now they sign another keeper to compete. And so he is moving back down to the Championship for Luton Town. So he's kind of in the same situation as Zach Steffen, probably trying to, he's maybe a guy who's a little bit on the bubble when it comes to the World Cup. You would think he's probably the third guy. We saw him be shaky in this last camp for the USMNT. He's a guy who wants to secure a spot, go to the World Cup. Do you think Luton Town is the right move for that?
Yeah, I think this move in general, like any kind of club, such as Zach Steffen as well, I think it's pretty obvious that Zach Steffen has higher quality. But if you think about it, with Nottingham Forest bringing in Dean Henderson and also having experienced backup keeper in Wayne Hennessy, it's still like a very shaky situation for him. So I'm glad he left that situation. I don't think he can beat out Dean Henderson in a year worth of a loan. So I don't know if it'll be a permanent move, but I think Luton Town is the smart choice for sure.
Yeah. And so with the three goalkeepers in mind, I probably wouldn't have Ethan Horvath as my one, but I would have probably said Turner was Greg Berhalter's number one keeper going into this. Now it kind of seems like he will be getting less playing time. Zach Steffen will get more playing time. Based off of these transfers, who do you think is going to start most of World Cup games? Because I would assume you probably want to try to keep the same goalie for as many games as you can.
Yeah, I do believe, sadly, it will be Zach Steffen because I am an Arsenal fan. But like again, you cannot beat every single championship game versus only a couple cup games and maybe a couple games you sub in the Premier League. I just don't see it. It's not realistic. It's not logical at all. but I'd love to see him prove me wrong.
See,
I love Matt Turner.
I would actually disagree. I think Turner is going to keep his spot. I've seen Greg go on interviews and talk about how he talks about how form is important, which sometimes sounds a little like BS at times with certain players like John Brooks. But he's talked about how he's okay with Turner being such a good shot stopping goalie. He saw Zach Stefan go to Man City where he didn't play, and he felt like he improved a lot. So I actually think even if Turner is not playing, Berhalter I think he's fine with that. Also, it'll also depend on the form, obviously, of Stefan. But I actually still think Turner is going to be able to keep that starting spot and stay the number one goalie with the USA. So I introduced the goalies. We have 3 goalies. We actually have 3 players in each position. Didn't plan it that way. It just kind of worked out. Well, you go ahead and tell me who our defenders are.
Yeah, so the first defender, which in my opinion right now, I'm just going to say is my most exciting one, is Chris Richards to Crystal Palace. So I just want to ask you, how do you feel about this transfer, Sauce?
Okay, so I think he's a young guy, right? He was Bayern Munich, wasn't really playing. He got loaned out to Hoffenheim for, I believe, 2 seasons. And he's hungry. I think he's ready to get the World Cup move. It shows, how courageous he is, thinking, he wants to make the World Cup this year. And so he's going to go to a Premier League team, which you would assume, is not easy to do. I think Crystal Palace, besides the top 6 teams, might have the best defense in the whole Premier League. They look sharp. It's not going to be an easy defense for him to break into. But he's just a dog. He's ready to go compete and try to earn that roster spot. Something I think Greg Berhalter actually used to play for Crystal Palace. I don't know if there's a lot of people who know that, which I think he's talked about how exciting it is to see Chris Richards go to his former club. So that'll be cool. I think Greg Berhalter likes the move. I think he sees that mentality in Chris Richards to go to the Premier League and want to compete. Hopefully, because it obviously seems it seems to me right now like Aaron Long is the left center back going into the World Cup. Whereas I think if Richards can go and get some game time with Crystal Palace, I really hope he is able to start on that left side, probably next to Zimmerman when it comes to World Cup time. So I love this move. I couldn't be more happy about it.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Speaking of domestic play, when it comes to Chris Richards, Crystal Palace, very physical side, just like the Premier League. They spent about $20 million on him plus the add-on, so it was roughly about $20 million. So it's a pretty big buyout, especially for Crystal Palace in this time. But Patrick Vieira is a manager now, ex-Arsenal player, has done very, very well with this buyback in. Sadly, couldn't get Conor Gallagher back, but this buying option is amazing to see that because that team, Crystal Palace, is looking like the Leicester City of nowadays, where it's just below Europa League play, but still pretty high mid-table. So you're right. Crystal Palace is a tough team, a lot of competition, but Chris Richards, I think, will get that starting spot and will progress, especially throughout the national team for sure.
Yeah, and I don't know how long the contract is. I would assume it's for a good
long term,
considering
sure.
how long he is or how young he is. But I honestly think maybe in the next 3 years, Crystal Palace could break into Europe and play in some European competitions, and I think that'd be fun for Chris Richards.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. So the next move, which I don't even know now. I love this move as well. Okay. Even though he's ex-Spurs, I still love this move. Carter Vickers goes on a permanent deal to Celtic in the Scottish Premiership.
So, obviously, Cameron Carter-Vickers is another guy who's fighting for a roster spot in the World Cup. It's not a new transfer. We saw him play on loan to Celtic last season. And, he was arguably one of the best defenders in the whole Scottish League, if not maybe the best defender in the whole Scottish League. Yep. Some people might want to say they wish they saw him move up to a bigger club. But for me, in a World Cup year, the guy is at a huge club, able to win titles. I believe they're competing in the Champions League. And he's going to play an important role there. He's going to play every minute. And for me, in a World Cup year, that's what you want your guy doing. He's going to be playing games when maybe some of the center backs aren't. And I think this earns him a roster spot for the World Cup, and he's going to be on form. And so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, for sure. If you think about the depth we have at center back, especially he's 24, I believe. So it's still young-ish, hitting that mid-20s area. But he's a mobile guy, but he's also very strong. Yeah. He's a little shorter, but he can jump.
No, he's a no-nonsense center back. You put it his way, he's going to get it.
For me. Upamecano out of Bayern right now?
I'm not too familiar, to be honest.
No, okay. He's very much like him, though. If you look him up, he's very similar to him. Definitely not the quality, but I believe, especially with this move, especially him progressing just like Chris Richards, he could possibly be seen in the starting 11 at some point, may get rotated at some point. I'd love to see that for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So for our last one, which is a pretty interesting one, but I think it's pretty bittersweet. Okay. It's Shaq Moore going into Nashville.
Yeah, so Shaq Moore, he was someone we saw in the Gold Cup the last Gold Cup that we played. He's a right back and he does pretty well. As World Cup, I don't really see him making the World Cup. I know a lot of these transfers. I keep the World Cup in mind, obviously. I think he's still behind Serginho Dest, obviously Yedlin and Cannon for that right back spot. But he was a guy who was playing in the second tier of Spain, and it just seems like, he's better than that. He wasn't even a regular starter for me. It's like, how do we have one of our guys who's making the Gold Cup, or at least trying to get into these camps and stuff like that, and he's a backup in a second tier league. So we come see him move to MLS. Obviously, Greg Berhalter is going to keep, I feel like, a sharper eye. Obviously, people like to make jokes about the MLS, and I think it'll be true if he can go do good for Nashville. Greg Berhalter might give him a chance at some point. Now, I don't think it's going to be the World Cup, but I think it's moving in the right direction in terms of his career, and then maybe he's a guy who will look to try to jump back to Europe. So I don't know. Not the most exciting one, but I think it's good.
Yeah, it's not exciting, but just like you said, it was only positives. He's leaving a club that he barely got any playing time, which is a little odd. But we've seen in the Gold Cup, he lacked the consistency because there were times where he looked really good, like the standout, even number one choice at right back. But then times were like, why is he here?
Yeah.
Why is he even here? But I think slowly putting him into that Nashville side and then just trying him out, even not just right back, because he's a pretty versatile dude. He can play some parts of the wide midfield, even like drop him back and maybe him a 3-back, maybe as a right center back at some points. He can play in a lot of different positions. I think it's just a point of just finding where he fits, really.
Yep. Nope. I agree. And so, I don't know, did you have any way to wrap up defenders, or are you ready to move into the midfield?
I guess just say again, my opinion, I think it's pretty easy to say Chris Richards is my favorite out of all these just because of how exciting it is. Even though Arsenal do play Crystal Palace in the opening, it'll be tough to see that. I want to see Chris Richards play as much as possible, especially in this Premier League side.
That's it. Now, moving on to our midfield, which might be the most exciting trio of it all. I'm gonna save the two guys everyone's waiting for. I'm gonna start off with Luca De La Torre. Making his move to Celta de Vigo, going over to Spain, Tier 1. What do you expect to see from him in his first year over there?
Yeah, so I would say it's a low risk buy and a smart buy. Around 2 to 3 million buyout for him from Celta Vigo, coming from, I believe it's the Dutch league, right? Eredivisie,
yeah,
I believe.
Eredivisie, yep.
It's a smart move because the Dutch league is a harder league to jump in, I think, when it comes to even the Celta Vigo side. It's like a PSV, that's hard because they have a lot of competition, especially in the midfield. They're known for that midfield presence. Him going to Celta Vigo, top 5 league side for sure. Top 5 league side. And him getting possibly that playing time is amazing for him. I love that.
Okay, so one of the things, he's obviously a bubble player. It seems like Berhalter likes him, and a lot of people want to see him at the World Cup. But do you think he's going to break into this side fast enough to be able to earn himself a World Cup spot? Because obviously he might not even play all the way up to the World Cup, and I feel like that could be a problem.
Yeah, no, that's kind of the problem, especially with Shaq Moore. Okay, they both don't have too much time in a position that has a decent amount of depth there. And it's just a shaky situation because you have Giovanni Reyna's like injury problems. You have the man that we're not going to speak about just yet, who did just transfer. Yeah. He has been a breakout star as well. So you have those dudes that have like been balling out for sure. In my opinion, we've seen people go into these top 5 leagues from leagues that aren't necessarily higher, even though they're in Europe, and they've broken out and become studs. There are some dudes like that, like Bruno Fernandes coming from Liga NOS, coming into the Prem, done very good, okay? In my opinion, I don't really see this happening for De La Torre. I'd love to, but I don't really see it happening in all honesty.
And so yes or no question. With that being said, does he make it into the World Cup squad?
I do not think so.
Ooh, okay, I think that's a hot take. I still think with the expansion to 26 guys, I probably see him in there, but I could see him getting cut for like a Christian Roldan, which I think if Christian Roldan made it into the World Cup just because Greg Berhalter likes him and Luca De La Torre does not, I think you'd have some pretty pissed off fans.
I would be very angry. I just think it's that fact of like we need that depth as well at that cam position because we have the quality, but again, you have the injury problems as well.
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna group the two last midfielders together. You know, it's the United States of Leeds. Yeah, Jesse Marsh as the coach. He's building his team, and he brings in two American midfielders. We have Brendan Aaronson, and we have Tyler Adams. Give me your thoughts.
Both coming from Red Bull sides, and like, I think they're absolute studs, okay? I'm just going to name the risk for both of them. Aaronson's coming from RB Salzburg, Austrian League, okay? Just doesn't have the best team. Salzburg is the standout team. You also have to think about this was a $35 million price tag on this man. So they have some high hopes for him. Yeah. Is he the same price tag as Rafinha when he got transferred to Barcelona? I don't think he has that quality, but I think he could get there. Yeah. Aaronson has shown signs of being better than Giovanni Reina, in my opinion. Shown signs of being that Pulisic in the midfield, doing absolute wonders, okay? My thing with Adams coming from a better side, RB Leipzig, has that sort of experience in the top five. His problem is, even though 25 million, pretty solid, he could play even at right back at times. He has those injury problems. I hate saying that, but he does, and that is a factor. He's going to play probably every single game with that standout name that he's built for himself. But for both these signings with the combined rate of about 60 to 70 million, it's definitely worth it. And I love to see Leeds and their rise up in the national team to be better and better and better.
Okay, and so I know Aaronson's obviously on the come up. You got a lot of American fans who are loving him. Tyler Adams, was one of the guys. It seems like he's maybe fallen off a little bit. This could help jumpstart him back. I know when it comes to like hype, a lot of people are on Aaronson. But all biases aside, my question out of Aaronson and Adams is just who do you think is going to play more minutes for this lead side in the Premier League campaign?
I believe it will be Aaronson. I think judging based on the fact that they lost a key aspect in Rafinha, he's going to replace Rafinha for sure. Whatever position, whether that be Cam or outside on the wings, they will find a way to replace him and be that new Rafinha. Mm-hmm. Adams, it's shaky because they do have some midfielders, even though they're not as good. But you also got to think about they just lost Phillips to City. Yeah. So it's a very, very hot take between both of them. I just want to say Aaronson because they are becoming more of an attacking team, more counter-attacking. So I think it will be Aaronson that will get more minutes.
Well, I think Adams suits the team really well too when it comes to counterattack. He's going to be able to win the ball back, and they're going to press, get it up. Obviously, I think Jesse Marsh recruited both these players because they fit the system. I mean, he's coached both of them in the past. So one last question. We talked about who's going to get more minutes. You said Aaronson. Now bringing it wrap around. We got four guys who are on this list now, the final Premier League guys. We have Matt Turner, Chris Richards, Brendan Aaronson, Tyler Adams. Rank me those four on who you're the most excited to see in the Premier League. I know you have no time to think about this, but I'm telling you.
Yeah, okay. So it was Aaronson, Adams, Richards, and Turner,
yeah,
right?
Those are four guys who are in the Premier League this year.
I'm going to be honest, Turner's probably at the bottom, even though I'm an Arsenal fan. He's not really going to play too much. I think he'll do good still, but not as much. On the sides, good Lord, you set me up for failure. Chris Richards, I think, is the third because they do have some experienced center backs there. I love the dude. He is an awesome player, but he's coming in with little to no experience with those top teams because Hoffenheim, yeah, they're good. They're about mid-table side for Bundesliga, though.
Hey, I think they played in European competition. I'm pretty sure they were in the Champions League or Europa League this last year.
Which goes into my next sort of thing, okay? I'm honestly going to, even though I hyped him up more, I think Aaronson is the second one based on the fact that they're putting a lot of heat on him right now. $35 million for someone that hasn't proven himself in a top 5 league. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. And then when you think of Adams, even though it's 10 million, 15 million, maybe a little less, okay, with 25 million for Adams, think of it as a less risk, even with the injury problems. He has a lot of experience already at a young age. He came into Leipzig at 16 years old, has stayed with them for about 7-8 years, and has shown signs of playing. He's done an amazing job, and I think he is that standout transfer, especially for the national team that needs that sort of box-to-box to defensive midfielder alongside McKinney in the national team for sure.
Yeah. I kind of sprung that on you to give me some time to think about it. So I'm gonna answer the same question. The 4 guys, I think I'd agree in the 4 spot. I probably put Turner 4 just because I don't really think he's gonna play that much, and I also don't like Arsenal. Chelsea. Gotta rep my London side. Can't be an Arsenal fan.
London is red.
In preseason, that's what it looks like, man. We gotta step it up. But Turner 3. I probably honestly put Adams at 3 for me because
I could see you doing that.
Chris Richards, he's just exciting for me. I want to see him make. Tyler Adams is locked into the World Cup, so for me, I've been able to watch him for a while. I see what he can do. I value him. I think he's an underrated player. But for me, I'm slightly less excited about his move because I know what he can do, and I think he brings a lot to the table.
That's fair.
But so I'm going to put him at 3 because we've seen what he can do. Now we have kind of Aaronson who was playing for Salzburg last year. I wasn't able to watch him that much except for when he was in the Champions League, which by the way, they overperformed like crazy.
Yeah, they did.
In the last Champions League, getting out of their group. I think they got hammered by Bayern, but they still put up a goal or two. Okay. Because now it's between Aaronson and Richards, and I gave myself some time to think about it. Aaronson is, I think the fan favorite, especially as an attacking player. He'll be able to get some goals and assists. But I'll go with Chris Richards number 2. I kind of want to put him number 1 just because I'm excited to see what he can do. And especially, I just want to see him crack this USA roster. I want to see him become a starter. But I'm going to keep him number 2. And maybe it is a little bit that he's a defender. It's slightly less fun watching defenders, we'll be honest. Brendan Aaronson will be number 1. I'd love to see him get some goals and assists. So yeah, Turner 4, 3 is Adams, 2 is Chris Richards, and 1's Brendan Aaronson. But all of these guys are exciting.
Yeah.
With that being said, we're gonna move into our 3 attackers. Starting it off, I'm gonna go with Jordan Peafock. Was playing for Young Boys this last season. Did great. In my opinion, he's my top guy for the USA, even though he hasn't proved it yet with them on the field, especially that miss in Azteca. Seems like a lot of people aren't forgiving him, but now he's making his move to a top 5 league in the Bundesliga, going over to Union Berlin. I think he'll get a lot of playing time. The problem is, or the good and the bad, he's going to Union Berlin, who play 2 up top, so I think he's going to get a lot of game time. However, I don't think their system fits the high press, only one striker system that USA has. I think Berhalter might, not be a huge fan that he's going to play in a totally different system on club level. What do you think about that transfer?
No, yeah, I agree with that. For the player's career, amazing decision. 7 million is what I got out of it. He's in his prime right now. He's definitely going to be slotting in. I do believe he has been the standout, most consistent player for the U.S. men's national team. I also think, and this is just a little plug-in, I do like Jesus Ferreira as well at that position. I do like both of them a lot. But when it comes down to it, you are right. Peafock is not known for his pressing. Ferreira, kind of, not really. He's quick, but he doesn't really like to get that high up. When you think of Peafock, he's more of the false 9, likes to play in that center forward ground, which maybe you could see him play at Union Berlin because they have Cruz, who also plays there as well, who's a bit older. But I think for this transfer itself, he's going to have to slot in. But I think it's worth it because he's wanting to play in the top 5, which you'll have to adjust your game a lot. But I think this is a good transfer. It'll still be a little shaky. It's just a development aspect.
So he's developing himself as a player, maybe the right move for his overall career. But is it the right move to get him into the World Cup? Because I personally would love to see him at the World Cup. Do you think he's going to the World Cup?
I believe so. I think he deserves it. I think he should, and I think he will. I don't think he'll be starting, but I think he should for sure.
See, I think he should start. I think he should go to the World Cup. He's my favorite. In case you couldn't tell, I love Jordan Peafock.
I know
think
you
he
do
gets
love
so
Jordan.
much hate. There's guys like Pepe, Jesus Ferrer. Don't get me wrong, he's young. He's still got a lot to prove, but he's not the guy. Peafock can score, man. I want a guaranteed goal scorer when we're playing England. I want us to put some balls in the box and let him do his thing and score some goals. I mean, the guy, I don't know, he comes up clutch. Maybe he doesn't have the best record with USA, but I don't know, his clutch factor to me, like he came on as a late sub against Honduras in last year's Nations League semifinal when the game was tied. He scored, and I think it was the 89th minute to win over Honduras to get us into the final where we beat Mexico. And this last season's Champions League, I think he pulled young boys through qualification. I think there was two rounds.
Which is crazy to me.
Just through the qualification, I think there was 2 rounds. I'm talking about just the qualification to get in the group stage. I think there was 2 rounds where they were losing, and he pulled them back in the second leg to get them through to the next round. Then you have him in the group stage where he's playing teams like Manchester United, and he gets goals in the 90-plus minute of extra time to beat a team like Manchester United when he's playing with what you have to think is a far inferior squad. So I don't know, he's a guaranteed goal scorer in my opinion. It hasn't come yet, but I think it will come. And bring him to the World Cup, and I think he's going to show what he can do. But I'm not going to keep rambling. I'm going to move on to the next guy. I've put him in the forward category. It's Malik Tillman. He recently, the last camp, moved from a German international, made his one-time switch. He'll be representing the USA, and he's moving to Rangers. He was a Bayern Munich guy, wasn't getting a whole lot of playing time. He's still young, I believe 19. But now he's moving over to Rangers. What do you expect from that transfer?
I expect a lot, especially as a Bayern Academy kid as well. Dude's an amazing player. He has that sort of talent. He's a teenager, has that talent. What I'm very interested to see is if they'll put him up top when they play against Celtic against Carter Vickers.
Ooh,
I would love to see.
That would be a fun battle.
That would be fun to see. My thing is that USA has one of the youngest rosters, and it will be like that for maybe the next couple of years out of any national team. And I think this shows the future that we're not afraid to keep on pushing towards the future, no matter how young our squad is.
Yep.
Tillman, he probably will not make the World Cup squad, but I think in these times, if he possibly does well enough in Rangers, gets that permanent move, or even a lower sort of European side, I think he could show out in probably the next couple of years for sure.
Yeah, he was probably arguably my boldest prediction in my World Cup prediction video, roster video. I honestly think he could come to the World Cup because of his versatility. I mean, you can play him as a backup left wing. You can play him as a striker. He could probably play the right wing. He can play, the 8, the 10. I think he can just play in so many areas that now that we're expanding to a 26-man roster, it's just good to be able to have a guy who can fill whatever gap you have. Because we do have an injury-prone team, to be honest. As much as I want to say there's a lot of guys who could go down. I don't want to see it, but it would just be nice to see him come to the World Cup in case anything happens and he can fill all those roles, like I said. But now moving to the last guy of the video, it's another guy. It's not a new transfer. He's been there before. Haji Wright. He got his first call up in a while to the USA back in this last camp. He was able to score that goal because this guy Christian Pulisic gave him his penalty. They're best buddies. They grew up in the academy. They got some chemistry. Haji Wright staying in Turkey. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, so it's a little interesting one because just like Carter Vickers had a fantastic campaign over at this club, especially even though it's Turkey. He's at 24, still a little young. He could still jump into those bigger European sides. But in 32 appearances with 14 goals, especially with 15 games that were unbeaten in their league, that's pretty crazy if you really think about it, even though it's Turkey. So I don't know much about the guy, but even by statistics, he sounds like he's an exciting player, especially with that debut that he had with the national team. It's a really good thing to see, especially with the injury problems and even the versatility, such as Tillman. He may actually get slotted in. I didn't really think about that fully. He has played on the wing. Haji Wright, I believe a player like this, where he's willing to go down and deep into the dust of Turkey to go and play. I think he's willing to even change his game, not just change his own personal moves when it comes to football.
And so, okay, with the striker spot being so open, you have a guy in Haji Wright. Obviously, I talked about Peafock. You have Jesus Ferreira. You have Pepe, Sargent, all these guys. Does this move get Haji Wright into the World Cup? And but he's been there before. He got called up. Now it's a permanent. He was able to break out the last half of the season. I think scored something like 10 or 11 goals in the last 10, 11 games. Do you think he's able to make the World Cup?
Oof. Again, I don't know much about the guy, but especially with the fact that we have some guys that have high value. Like I'm a big Jesus Ferreira guy. Hasn't really shown too much of goal scoring, been more of a false line passing guy. When it comes to goals, Peafock and Haji Wright have done a great job at that. I think with that goal scoring aspect, which we have that inconsistency with, I can honestly see him possibly getting in there.
Okay. So I guess if we have three strikers at the World Cup, you see Jesus Ferreira as one. Now you said you see Haji Wright, and I don't know. Peafock seemed iffy, or maybe you don't see Haji Wright. But who are your three guys at the striker position? Maybe only two. What strikers do you think we're bringing to the World Cup?
I don't have three. I do have two. I do think it's Ferreira and Peafock for sure. Okay. My thing is that I don't think Peafock will be a starter because, like you said, he's gotten those late clutch games. So if you think of like Divock Origi was Liverpool, now with Milan, but he's known for getting subbed on. Even Batshuayi for your Chelsea, known for getting subbed on, doing very well, and a surprising factor. I think Peafock can be that way for anything, not just nationality, but even for domestic play. So that's the problem with the United States. They don't have that standout strikers even since Clint Dempsey. Like, it's been that way. Even since Clint Dempsey, they haven't had one.
Josie Altidore was a baller.
Sure. But, like, there's no standout crucial player that we can say, hey, we can depend on him every single game. There has not been that for a while. And I'd love to see Jesus Ferreira do that. He has not done it. Daryl DK, not so much either. Josh Sargent is just long gone. Sorry. But honestly, Peafock, you are right. He has gotten that thing that we have not done very well, which is scoring goals consistently. He's been able to do that. So maybe.
All right, well, that is all the transfers that have happened. There might be some more. I'm probably honestly not going to make a future video just for those. I know John Brooks is kind of a free agent right now. Needs to find a club with like 2 weeks left to start. So there might still be some transfers, but this is what I have so far. But with that being said, it was lovely having you back on the show, Will. Maybe we can see some more of you soon, especially coming up to the World Cup. Gonna be making videos like crazy. But I appreciate you having on. I appreciate all the viewers for watching. Go ahead and comment who your favorite guy is. Probably Aaronson. I know everyone's gonna say Aaronson, but maybe if it's not Aaronson, you comment it's not Aaronson. Who it is? Chris Richards, Aaronson, Tyler Adams. United States of Leeds. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see y'all later.